What if I told you that being booked solid for the next 6 months isn't actually the ultimate sign of success? What if it's really a symptom of a huge financial mistake? I know it sounds totally backwards, but in this explainer, we're going to break down the $250,000 error that so many remodelers are making and why the smartest folks in the industry are actually spending more to make a whole lot more. So let's just kick things off with a statement that probably feels completely wrong. While you're celebrating being booked 6 months out, you're actually losing over $250,000 a year. I mean, come on, being booked out is the goal, right? It's literally the definition of success in this business. But as we're about to see, the numbers, well, they tell a very, very different story. Just let that number sink in for a second. $250,000. That is not a small rounding error. That is a massive amount of revenue just being left on the table every single year by contractors who honestly believe they're doing everything right. And what's really wild is that this mistake is happening inside a market that is absolutely exploding. We're talking about an industry that's on track to be worth over $800 billion. The opportunity for growth is it's huge, but so is the cost of getting your business strategy wrong. So where does this $250,000 gap even come from? Well, it pretty much boils down to one massive disconnect. You see, most remodelers spend just 3 to 5% of their revenue on marketing, but all the experts, all the data recommends nearly double that, somewhere between 7 and 8%. That tiny little percentage point difference, that's where the entire problem and the massive opportunity is hiding. To make this really tangible, let's meet two remodelers. We'll call them Sarah and Mike. They're in the same town, they have the same skills, but their businesses could not be more different. Okay, let's break this down. Sarah, she invests the typical 3%. Her revenue is a totally respectable $1.2 million, but her pipeline is a stressful feast or famine roller coaster. Now look at Mike. He invests 8%. And yeah, his marketing budget is way bigger, but look at the results. $1.8 million in revenue, a consistently full pipeline, and this part is absolutely key, a higher average project value. That constant demand means he gets to charge a premium. So here's the bottom line. Mike isn't just working harder, he's working smarter. He's pulling in 50% more revenue, and he can charge premium prices, all because he made one strategic shift in his marketing investment. It really proves it's not always about being the better builder. These days, it's about being the better marketer. And this brings us right to the core idea here. That feeling of being totally booked out for 6 months, we've all been taught to see that as the pinnacle of success. But what if it's actually a symptom of failure? Why would I say that? Because being booked out comes with 3 huge hidden costs. First, you're leaving money on the table. You know that feeling when you have to take a low-margin job just to keep the crew busy? That's what happens when you have zero pricing power. Second, you create a ton of vulnerability. Your whole business is riding on word of mouth, and if those referrals suddenly dry up, so does your pipeline. And third, you are completely invisible to the best clients, the premium ones who spend months researching online. They'll never even find you. So that's the problem. But what's the solution? Well, it's called the 8% investment formula, and it is the roadmap that takes you from that stressful feast or famine cycle to predictable, sustainable growth. Now, to really get why 8% works so well, you have to understand how modern homeowners actually choose a contractor. It is not a quick decision anymore. We're talking about a 6-month, sometimes longer, research journey where they find, vet, and build trust with contractors online long before they ever pick up the phone to ask for a quote. Just think about this journey for a minute. For 4 solid months, your ideal client is just browsing, planning, reading reviews. They're building a mental shortlist of who they trust. The problem for the 3% marketer, you are completely invisible during this entire critical phase. By the time they're actually ready to make a call, the decision has pretty much already been made, and you're not even on the list. This strategy also solves another massive industry headache. That's seasonal revenue drop. By generating leads all year long, the 8% marketer smooths out those crazy peaks and valleys, and they can reduce those seasonal dips by as much as 40%. It literally ends the roller coaster ride. Let's put some real hard math to this. For a contractor who's already doing $1.2 million a year, increasing their marketing budget from 3% up to 8%, that's an extra $60,000 a year, is projected to generate an additional $270,000 in annual revenue. That is the massive revenue gap we've been talking about. And the return on that extra investment, it's a staggering 450%. I mean, seriously, where else are you going to get a return like that? This isn't an expense. It's probably the single most profitable investment you can make in your entire business. So where exactly does that 8% go? Look, it's not just about spending more money, it's about spending it strategically. A really well-balanced budget is divided across three key areas. 40% goes to active lead generation, think ads. 35% build your digital foundation, like your website and SEO. And 25% goes to long-term relationship building through things like email marketing and getting reviews. It creates a complete systematic marketing engine that runs all year long. Now, I know this can feel like a huge leap. It can feel overwhelming, but you don't have to do it all at once. There is a clear 12-month action plan to get you from that 3% mindset to the 8% system, step by step. Here's how it builds out. The first 3 months, that's all about the foundation, getting a professional website, starting your local SEO so people can actually find you. Then, from months 4 to 6, you amplify that foundation with things like Google Ads and a system for getting great reviews. Finally, from month 7 on out, you optimize. You scale what's working, you build out more educational content. It's a logical, totally manageable process. And what's the ultimate payoff for following this plan? Within just 1 year, the expected result is a predictable pipeline full of high-quality leads, the ability to command premium prices for your work, and a significant revenue increase of 25 to 40%. You're not just getting busier, you're fundamentally changing the financial health and the entire future of your business. So, it all comes back to this one simple but really powerful idea. With a clear path forward and a proven return on that investment, it is time to stop making the $250,000 mistake. I want to leave you with a quote that just sums up the modern reality of this industry perfectly. The contractors thriving right now aren't better at construction, they're better at marketing. The game has changed, you guys. Visibility is now just as important as your skill with the hammer. And that brings us to the final question we have to ask ourselves. It's really easy to look at an 8% marketing budget and see it as a big expense. But the real question, it isn't can you afford to invest that money? The real question is, can you afford to keep losing $250,000 year after year after year by not investing?